Hey, everybody. Welcome once again to TNTT, Truth Not Trash with Tim. Anyway, it's Tuesday. It's time to talk. It's time to put some information out. And we're going to start a new series tonight. We're going to start a series on the Constitution. So we'll get into that in just a second. But I wanted to throw a few things out at you. I didn't wear a mask all day today. It was pretty cool. It was interesting. I had a guy at McDonald's tell me it's the law that you have to wear a mask. So I had to set him straight, which was easy to do. Um, and then he was like, "Oh, yeah, well," and he quit complaining about it. Um, I was at Ace Hardware, and I just walked in and did my business and walked out. Nobody said anything. That was kind of cool. So here's the thing, guys. It's up to us to stand up. It's up to us to passively resist. We don't have to be violent about this, but we just have to quit giving in to every single whim of these supposed powers that know everything, that are so much smarter than us, even though the information they give us is in a lot of cases factually inaccurate, and you can look it up and find it yourself. We talked about overall deaths last week. So that's my spiel about the mask thing. Resist. I was out at Mossy Rock the other day. I gave a speech. You guys can find a snippet of that on my YouTube channel. It's been out there on Facebook. There was 1,000+ people there. It was a great event. I met with some folks that are new to me. I met some people that I had known for a while because of the election, and we pressed forward and we packed the restaurants and we made that city some money, and we helped them feel like Americans again. You know, that what we did in Mossy Rock should be the norm. This mask thing should be the abnormal weirdness, and yet people are trying to push it as the norm. So once again, that's my spot on the mask. I'm going to stop on that right now. We can talk about coronavirus and the depression of our society and things of that nature in another episode. I also want to hit on the election deal. Looks like the electors are being sent, right? All the states have voted. There's rumors out there that there's still hope. I hope there is. Even if Donald Trump doesn't retain 4 more years, I believe he's going to have huge influence on what's going on. And we need to help. We need to be willing to stand up, fight that fight. I don't know about you guys, but at some point in time, we got to quit taking the abuse. We got to quit taking the abuse, and we need to stand up and we need to fight back. I'm not saying through violence, but through elections. Let's win this Georgia election. But I guarantee you, if somebody tries to rip me out of my car or hurt one of my family or friends, yeah, it won't end pretty. It won't end pretty. So I will not turn tail and run like the police in Seattle did in the park the other day. So, and I would suggest that you don't either, but don't be by yourself, because Antifa won't go after a group of people, but they'll find you when you're by yourself, when it's just 1 or 2 people, and they'll try to track you down. Okay, so that's that deal. But let's stand up and fight, and let's keep our eyes and our ears open and see what we can do to help out with the election. Well, we can't say the F word, right? Either one of them, because YouTube will now they'll block us. You know, those guys suck. I don't know how else to put it. They suck. Okay, so the Constitution, which all that stuff I just mentioned, Constitution takes care of this kind of stuff. It's out there. It's printed. Our laws are in place. And so what I want to talk to you guys about tonight is, well, this is how we're going to do it. I'm going to give you some of the literature. I'm not an expert. I'm just like you. I'm a guy that said, man, I need to figure this out. I need to learn more. I need to be responsible for me, and I need to be responsible to teach my children and my grandchildren. And if questioned by somebody else, I need to have information to share, right? I need to understand why our government is what it is. And I need to understand why it's so important that we preserve that. Because if I can't understand it, I can't share it. And if I can't share it, other people can't hear it. So we need to be part of the solution. And we can do that by learning the Constitution, learning why we have the government we have, learning the way the government's supposed to be and what's supposed to be happening based on our law and rules and regulations. And I would say rules and regulations are secondary. Law is primary, and the law has to be based on the Constitution of the United States of America. So what we're going to do is we're going to divide this up in sections. We're going to do a section. You'll see here that I got tons of notes. You can't really see it, but I got tons of notes, things to talk about. I've got screens to share. But what we're going to do is we're going to start tonight with some literature, books to get, things to read, stuff you can follow along with. And we're going to go over the preamble, and we're going to discuss what the preamble means. And then next week, or not next week, I think I'm going to try to do this every other day or so. I still got to work and make a living and pay the bills, but we're going to go through each article individually. Some articles are going to be an hour long. Some articles are going to be 5 or 10 minutes. If it's a 5 or 10 minute article, then we can move on and do a couple of them. And then we're going to go through the Bill of Rights. We're going to go through all the amendments. And so what we're going to do is we're going to read it the way it was written. And we're going to make our own determinations based on smart American individuals who understand the English language and can pull from our experience on what we believe is right and what is wrong. So that's pretty cool. So a couple of things. Obviously, you need a copy of the Constitution. This is a Navy required reading book. This one says the Declaration of Independence and Other Great Documents of American History. I'll put a link to this book. I like it. The small pocket Constitution is fine as well. But this one has a bunch of extra stuff in it. It's all as written, though. There's no ad lib in here. So it's got Lincoln's farewell speech, George Washington's inaugural speech, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, Emancipation Proclamation. It's got a lot of good information in it. So I would suggest that you get something like this. Doesn't have to be this one, but to follow along with. I'm also going to give you a website here in a minute that you can follow along with to actually look at the pages of the Constitution that I am going to be referencing. It's all written the same as in that book I just showed you, but this is the side that's got my notes on it. I'll probably put my glasses on because I'm getting old, so you'll see the reflection of the screens. I would also recommend that you guys get a copy of the Federalist Papers, because that is the founders' own words explaining to us what they meant, what the reasoning behind the Constitution was, the articles, and I would wager that a lot of what they argued in the Federalist Papers and the information they put forward made it into some of the amendments over time as well, especially Bill of Rights. So the Federalist Papers. Oh, and I tell you what, man, if you can't sleep at night, break open a couple Federalist Papers. That'll help knock you out. I am going to change the screen save real quick, and I want to share with you just something real quick on the Federalist Papers. So bear with me. Oh, where is it? Where is it? There it is. Now this is Wikipedia. So you don't have to follow me along per se, or you can go to Wikipedia and just type in the Federalist Papers. And I'm just going to read this first section to you. Once again, I got to put my glasses on so I can see. But it says here, the Federalist Papers is a collection of 85 articles and essays written by Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay under the collective pseudonym Publius to promote the ratification of the United States Constitution. The collection was commonly known as the Federalists until the name Federalist Papers emerged in the 20th century. Anyway, you guys can read all this stuff and figure it out for yourselves and look at it. But I would suggest that you actually do pick up a copy of the Federalist Papers. A lot of good information in there. A lot of good information. So let me go back, and we will open back up that picture that I showed you that I had of the Constitution. Let's see if that's the one. There you go. So yeah, that's the Constitution. That's a cool little picture of of the Founding Fathers standing up and talking about it. Another book I would get, so we've talked about the Federalist Papers, we've talked about the actual Constitution itself. This is probably one of my favorite books of all time. It's called A Patriot's History of the United States. It goes from the very beginning of people coming to North America, at least as far as we know, all the way up through past Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and into the beginning of the modern Afghan war, so early 2000s, World Trade Center stuff. So it goes all the way through there. It says from Columbus' great discovery to the war on terror. And you can see, maybe you can, maybe you can't, I don't know. But you can see I've got a bunch of pages marked that we're going to talk about for the Constitution talk. So that's a great book. And I tell you what, it'll open your eyes. But it's definitely a history book, and be prepared. Be prepared to learn some history there. All right. So a couple of things that I want to talk about, that I want to get settled. So Constitutional Convention started in May 1787. September 15th or 17th, depending on which place you go, the delegates of 12 states approved the Constitution. And that was 1787. So it went from May to September. It didn't start right away as soon as they showed up. They had to wait till they had enough people there. But they got in there and they argued, and it was actually a closed conference. Nobody was in there with them. Funny story, and you can hear it when I talk at my Mossy Rock talk. At the end of it, when Ben Franklin walked out, and that's in one of these history books here too, and you'll find it. But when Ben Franklin walked out, a lady asked him, what type of government do we have? And Ben answered, a republic. And then he said, if you can keep it. And that's the question, right? If you can keep it. So it was put in place. Let's see, on June 21st of 1888, it was actually ratified by 9 of the states, which was the minimum amount of states that was needed to put it in place. And then finally, on May 29th, 1890, Rhode Island, which was the last state to ratify it, ratified the Constitution, putting it in place for all the states of the United States of America. Some fun facts. Let me go to a different page. And once again, I'm going to put links up for all this stuff. What I would like you to do is check this link. Let me find it. This one. I'm going to make it big. Oh, it's not going to show it to you. Anyway, if you just go to Bing and you type in constitution-center.org/interactive-constitution/full-text, you'll get the same exact text that I'm using. That's this one right here, this text right here. And so that's what we're going to use. All right. I'm going to move on to a different page, somewhere where we can talk. And I want to give you some interesting little tidbits. Let's see if I can, though. Application window. Let's go over here. That's what I'm looking for. Right there. Share this, and I'll put a link to this. But this is just some good information, some things to consider and talk about. I don't know. Yeah, you do see the mouse over there. That's good. It's just not in the same place on this screen. It is on that screen. Here's some interesting tidbits. Did you know that only, and we're going to go up here, that only about 23 to 28% of Americans have actually read the Constitution and have an idea, a good idea of what's in it. Now, more of them claim to say that I understand it, I know what's in it. But But when questioned about the content in some of the things that are in it, these people falter. And I'm not blaming them. Our schools don't teach it. Our schools don't teach it. There should be a course in grade school about what is the Constitution, in middle school, the content of the Constitution, and in high school, the understanding of the Constitution. And you should be able to pass those courses before you can graduate to the next level. And this is one of the most important things we can do in our nation to keep our republic, which is what Ben Franklin was worried about. See, they believe that a well-informed electorate is the only way to keep our republic and to keep our nation strong, prosperous, and growing. And right now, I'm not trying to downgrade anybody, but it seems like the higher your education level, the lower your level of understanding of how our nation was founded and the history of our country. And the common sense of being a decent American. I mean, it just seems that way. Now, not everybody, right? That's a generalization. I'm not trying to say it's everybody, but it seems like at our universities now, we trade in moral standards and common sense for a higher education that doesn't really help a lot of people. Go get your philosophy education. Go get your education in gender studies and see where it leads you. Not very far, probably, right? So pretty good stuff. So that's 27%. We're just going to go with that, 27%. So what is that? 73% of Americans don't know or understand the Constitution. And like I said, just little tidbits to get us interested in this. It says here more than 97% believe that the word God is in the Constitution. It doesn't appear anywhere in there. I'm a Christian. Most of you guys know that. I'm not trying to say anything negative about the Constitution. I believe that it was divinely inspired. And when you read the Constitution, there are some references here and there that would lead you in that direction. But the word God does not appear in the Constitution anywhere. And 90% of Americans believe it does. So that, too, is one of those things that we need to talk about. Once again, if 27% of Americans say they've read and understand the Constitution, but 98% of the people say that the word God is in it, there's some confusion there. Approximately 98% of the people surveyed believe the First Amendment was the most important amendment. I believe they determined it to be at that point, at some point in time. That's why it's the First Amendment. However, it wasn't the First Amendment proposed. It was the First Amendment that was accepted. So those are things that can be confusing and thought about. More than 8%, 87% of people believe that the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution are the same document. No, 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 no. The Declaration of Independence led us in the direction of a Constitution through ways of the Articles of Confederation. Well, that's a whole nother story. We can talk about that in the next one. And we can even do another special on the Declaration of Independence. But they're not the same. But people believe that. People believe that. Let's see. The number of people who believe the Constitution establishes a democracy has increased from 82% in 61 to 94 in 16. Once again, we are not a complete democracy. Democracies have failed around the world over the last few hundred years. A democracy is when every single thing is voted on by every single person. What we have is we have a republic. And the republic says that we vote people into place that we trust and believe are going to do the right things and allow them to make decisions for us. If we don't like the decisions they make, we remove them from office and put somebody else in place. And we also have the redress of being able to have an election based on just that particular issue. And that's a state thing, just that particular issue, and have that decided by the people. So if the Congress puts something in place, there's ways for us to try to get rid of that. It talks about at least 80% of the Americans believe that the Constitution specifically provides for the separation of church and state. Now, I'm going to spend a second on this one because it's worth talking about. It says the concept appears nowhere in the Constitution, separation of church and state. Doesn't appear in the Constitution. And we're going to get to that, and that's under the First Amendment, and it mentions a little bit about it here in the articles in different places, but mostly the First Amendment. Really what happened was that phrase came from a letter from Thomas Jefferson to a religious group as a way of avoiding becoming entangled in their legal issue. So it really had nothing to do with the United States of America in general. What it meant was he didn't want to get involved in what he considered a petty argument. He didn't want the United States to get involved in what they considered a petty argument of a religious belief of a particular religious organization. So nowhere does it talk about separating church and state. That's a myth that's been put in place. It's been portrayed by the left and the anti-Christian movement for 100 years, probably a little bit more than 100 years. All right, so that's something we need to talk about, and the churches need to talk about this. Listen to Pastor John Locke out of Tennessee one of these days if you get a chance. Holy cow. Is it Tennessee or Kentucky? I don't remember, but that guy's on fire, and he knows what he's talking about. But yeah, nowhere does that appear. We'll talk about that a little bit more when we get to that section of the Constitution. Couple other cool little things. Less than 3% of the population can tell or properly identify how many articles or amendments are in the Constitution. That's pretty interesting, right? If 27% of us have read it. Less than 14% of the people identify that it is the Constitution that establishes the 3 branches of government. A lot of people don't know that. That was basic government when I was in school. So I'm going to post a link to this. We don't need to go through this entire thing. But I'll post a link to this article and this professor that wrote the article. It's good stuff. His name's Carl Franklin, and I'll make sure that's in there. So let's move on. All righty. So a couple of things I wanted to look at here in the book. Second Amendment. Oh, this was an interesting quote that I thought, and this is all part of the Constitution and why they did the things they did. Now that one we'll save for another time. That one we'll save for another time. All right, we'll just get going. All right, the Constitution. Let me pull it up so you guys can all see it. And once again, I'm going to pull up the Constitution that I'm actually reading off of. Nope, that's not it. Let me pull up the right thing. Let's see, not that one, not that one, this one. Here we go. All right, the Constitution, a great document. And we're just going to concentrate on the preamble. And the preamble, everybody, is really a why. The preamble itself is not law. It doesn't hold anybody to a particular regulation or standard or rule, but it's why we wanted a Constitution. It establishes the reasons for writing the Constitution. So let's just read it, and then we'll go from there. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Sounds pretty simple, right? But there is a lot there to unpack. And you guys can unpack a lot of it on your own. But we, the people, that's the primary reason for a Constitution. Not we, the government, we, the people. The people are in charge of the government. The people employ the government. The people establish the government. In order to form a more perfect union, establish justice. So courts, making sure that nobody can be discriminated against, making sure that everybody's treated equally. Right? Now, this was an idea. It was an ideal. It was something to strive for. It didn't work out perfectly in the beginning. It's something, it's establishing a goal. So establish justice. ensure domestic tranquility. Keep us from fighting with each other. Keep us from burning down buildings and looting stores. That's part of justice and domestic tranquility. Let us be happy at home. Stay out of our business. If we're not hurting nobody, don't bother us. Provide for the common defense. Well, that's the military. But you know what else that is? That's you. That's you and me protecting ourselves, our property, our God-given rights of being, to promote the general welfare, to make sure that everybody has a chance. Not give everybody everything, but make sure that everybody has the chance to attain what they want, to live the way they want to live, right? Not everybody's the same. And that's why socialism never, ever works, because they believe that everybody should be exactly the same. And secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, which means put this in place forever. Ensure that we continue to have our liberty. Make sure people understand it. Make sure that people know why the Constitution was put in place and what it meant to the founding fathers and what they expect it would mean to us. And so that's really important. And then we ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Now these men, you got to realize these men had went through the Revolutionary War. They were victims of British oppression and colonization. And believe it or not, they went to war for a lot less than what we put up with today. I'm not saying we need to go to war, but what I'm saying is they wanted certain things, and their government just would not even entertain it or listen to them. Sound familiar with our political class these days? And so they just went through this big, long war, and they're like, how are we going to prevent this from happening again? What can we do? And that's where these basic rights are established. And so it's important for you to read this. And I would say read it a couple times. And hey, you don't got to take my interpretation of what this thing says. You can go out and you can look at other people's interpretations. What I would suggest is that you look at dozens of interpretations and then try to figure out which one makes sense to you. Maybe it's a little bit of a 4 or 5 different interpretations that makes the most sense to you. I don't know. But what I do know is we need to read it. We need to read it. So next week, let me go back to this. Actually, I'll make it big. Next week, what we're going to do is we are going to go over Article 1. And Article 1 has a few sections in it. It's one of the longer articles. It's the article that establishes the Congress of the United States and the two parties. Not two parties, I'm sorry, the two houses. And we'll look at that and we'll try to understand that a little bit more. But that's what I got for you tonight. Once again, keep your eyes and ears open and make sure you know what's right for you and your family. And let's make sure that if we're not, we become that educated electorate that can make good decisions. And if we are part of that educated electorate that can make good decisions, let's try to help somebody else become that educated electorate as well. So we'll keep pushing forward. I'm getting used to this streaming thing. It's fun. I've got a new monitor over here so I can dual screen it. Still not quite as easy as everybody makes it sound, but we'll get this figured out. And once again, I got tons of notes, and we'll just keep on and ask me questions. Don't forget to ask me questions. I'll try to answer them over the next day or two, and we'll go from there. All right, I'm going to end this broadcast. Once again, this is Truth Not Trash with Tim, TNTT. And if you like what you see, go ahead and subscribe. It'll get nothing but better from here. And we'll press on. That's what we'll do. We'll press on. All right, you have a great evening. God bless you, and God bless America.